this is my Geosynthetics podcast. In this episode, I'm with Brandon Swift, one of the people who have been in the geosynthetics industry in the Australian market for almost 20 years. And moving forward, I think you're looking at some international growth as well. So thanks for your time, and thanks for speaking with me and my audience. Let's just start with a very generic question about your career. Where did you start it? How did you end up in the geosynthetics industry?
So I graduated from Monash Uni in Melbourne, did my undergrads of economics and civil engineering, finished in the early 90s, and it was a bit of a recession in Victoria, so I ended up working in factories, doing some research on precast concrete structures, and worked with a precast concrete company for 7 years, moving around Australia. And then in 2000 I took a year off and finished a master's degree and in business administration, and then went back then I looked for a job in the paper. That was how long ago it was, and I ended up in a technical marketing role with Geofabrics starting in 2001. So I didn't know anything about geosynthetics, and here I am 20 years later.
Yeah, fantastic. And so like you said, 20 years in one company, Geofabrics, and being a leader in the Australian market. My second question is, how do you see these, like the 20 years when you look back? What did the industry look like back then? And what sort of changes you've seen in the market in the past 20 years, and what's the present status of these of the geosynthetics industry in Australia?
It's a good question. It's for me, it's been an exercise in watching an industry grow up. So whilst geosynthetics have been around probably since the late 60s and 70s, from in a serious sense. I mean, Geofabrics started in 78. Started production 87, but it still was an embryonic or a small industry, whereas since I've been around, I've watched it grow up, and you get the jobs get bigger, the products get more accepted as a solution, and it really has matured. So you look at what that brings, and if I look at that industry maturing today, you've now got quite sophisticated investors coming in terms of venture capital companies. You've got some sophisticated marketing and production technique. I mean, it's actually quite nice to look back and watch what you think was your baby, and now it's it's grown up as an industry. And it's in terms of the milestones in Australia. My thoughts are we've always had some very good people in the industry. They've really promoted geosynthetics as a solution quite well, and this is so they've gone before us. But there are plenty of people who've done some great research, and we really have punched above our weight in terms of the use of geosynthetics in the world. And if I was to pick one item looking back over 20 years, as that was something the industry should be quite proud of. I look at the introduction of the BEPM guidelines in Victoria for landfill as a fantastic achievement, and the people involved with that should be extremely proud, because it changed the industry for the better, and we saw more commercial labs open up, the industry capability expanded, and from a manufacturer's perspective, we actually got to know our process and our products in a much deeper way, and it's helped force us to stay at our leading edge. So I look at it and say, it's started off here many years ago, and has just grown and
improving. Absolutely, I think that's as you mentioned, the BEPM standard and generally maybe that acceptance within the industry is a very important change when you look at the situation in the past and the current status of the market and the industry. So that brings me to the next question, which is about like what do you think? What are a few things that you are proud of as a manufacturer and supplier of products, geosynthetics products in Australia. I know Geofabrics has been very active in different fields, not just manufacturing. So you are probably one of the only companies who actually manufacture in Australia a few of the core products, and also you do a lot of research and development and PhD support and that sort of activities. Can you just tell us about that as well?
Yeah, so Geofabrics has always had a commitment to local manufacturing and being close to the customer, and obviously with the rise of China and increased globalisation, that can get reasonably tough at times. But if I look at one thing I'm very proud of is that we still have 2 factories in Australia. We employ more people today in manufacturing than we did 15, 20 years ago. We've improved our volume and quality in our processes immensely over that time and continue to invest. So, I don't think we are at our core. We are a manufacturer, but that's not how we define ourselves, because we are, we provide solutions to the engineering community. But that manufacturing presence is central to the business model, but as is a commitment to product quality, understanding the products. We invested in an R&D lab over 10 years ago, which we did it because no one else had the capability in the region, and we wanted to have the industry improve, and we opened it up for free to clients, and that was accepted really well. We sponsor PhD students, we do research with universities, so we get out and we educate, do seminars. So there's a lot going on in terms of how to keep if you want to be called a market leader, sometimes you've actually got to lead. So so to get up every day and lead and have that commitment to local manufacturing, it's definitely. I'm very, very proud of that.
Definitely. No, perfect. So talking about the past and present, my next question is about future. What do you think the future of geosynthetics industry would look like in the next, say, 10 years or so? What are the areas that you see are moving fast, improving, and what are the areas that might be something that a lot of maybe other players in the market need to focus on?
One thing's for sure, there'll be more competition, not less. That's always the way, but that's how you keep yourself match fit. I think sustainability is emerging as a real theme, even though Australia has been a little bit of a laggard in terms of, you could argue a laggard in terms of positioning around the world in terms of climate change and action and so forth. I think that will emerge, and geosynthetics has got a central role in that. You could call it sustainability, you could call it value engineering, but with geosynthetics, you're building the same structure with less impact on the environment. So that's certainly emerging as a theme. I look at the research going in today for the products of the future. So things like emerging contaminants. I mean, PFAS is the buzzword at the moment, but there'll be others behind that.
Exactly.
There are mining processes that are doing research in terms of how to contain waste and so forth. So I think you'll find more manufacturers and universities will be trying to find where the limits are for products, particularly around lining systems. But also there's, at the moment, all the products are kind of dumb products. They just perform a function. Some perform 2 or 3 functions.
That's right.
There are companies out there collecting data and putting sensors in systems and so forth, but there's actually no one yet to master making the product collect the data and transmit it back. And I'm not sure where the need will come from and who will be willing to pay for it, but at some point a company will come out and say, you can now monetize the collection of data through geosynthetics. And I think that'll be quite an interesting journey. So
very, very interesting.
And there's always new products. If few years ago, we weren't really talking about bituminous membranes. Now they're on the scene. In terms of the plastic liners or polymer liners, you've got the EVAs. I think they're emerging as relatively new, and you've got cementitious, concrete on a roll now. So there will always be people bringing something else through. So it's actually you can't be Nostradamus, but it's actually quite an exciting time to be involved.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And my last question, as always, is about maybe one highlight of your career in the past 20 years in the geosynthetics industry that you think has maybe had a significant implication or influence on your career. What do you think it was, and how did it affect the career?
Yeah, my father was a civil engineer, and he was a contractor.
Yeah.
So he would get up and go away for a couple of years, and then come home for a while and go away. Mm-hmm. And one thing we did as a family was we moved around, and when I started my career, I knew that opportunities would either come in the same company if I moved around, or if I stayed in the same city, I'd have to move around company. So I chose to move around geographically, and I think in my late 20s I went off to Launceston in Tasmania for 2.5 years, and I didn't know a soul, and I was said to an older friend who probably 20 years older than me, I said I'm off, going there for a few years. I don't know anyone, I'll probably go back to university and study something, but I'll do something for fun. I might do political science or something a bit different, get my creative side going.
Yeah.
And he said to me, don't be stupid, go off and do an MBA, but I'd never heard of it, I didn't know what it was. And I started it then, and I finished it 3 or 4 years later. And if I hadn't have taken his advice, I wouldn't have then had a series of job opportunities open up. So part of it is luck and timing, but part of it is a bit of preparation and listening, and actually that's not a bad idea. I might take a bit of advice there. So so that was, and I ended up as a result of that, there was some career steps, but I ended up being put in charge as managing director of a company at 36 years of age at Geofabrics, and 33 years of age before that, just of a smaller subsidiary, and it was I didn't have a clue, but I had good people around me the whole way through, and we put it together, and you learn. But if I hadn't have taken his advice, the rest of the steps wouldn't have fallen into place. Yeah,
no, I think you're perfectly right. It's a decision that you made at that time, and it has made a significant influence on your career. And 15 years as a managing director of a very successful business in Australia, I think that's a very significant achievement.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your time, Brendan, and thanks for talking to me and my audience today.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.